Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. It's Space Cowboy here. Got another video for you guys here today. Before we get started with today's video, if you guys can hit the like button, it'd be greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you're new. Over 82% of you guys watching are not subscribed. The average continues to drop, so let's keep the train rolling there. So if you're not subscribed now and you keep coming back for more Cowboys content or you're new, hit the subscribe button and stick around for more Cowboys content and hit the notification bell so when I put out new content, you get notified because YouTube can be weird sometimes. So we touched up on it in a small 1-minute video about the Stephon Gilmore trade. Hey, the Cowboys made a solid move, a good move at that. You get a player of his caliber for the comp pick that you got, so it's not like you took one of your own draft picks and flipped it for him, which is a move that I would commend any team to do, honestly, with what you would get with a 5th-round pick and knowing the Cowboys' history, very minute in terms of what they get value-wise. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop the conversation there because I want to get into this Donovan Wilson and Leighton Vander Esch news and the contracts they got, and then we'll continue because there's a point I want to make about all of what's been going on after day 2. So let's start off with Donovan Wilson's contract. So overthecap.com has given us the following information. When it was first reported, he got 3 years, $24 million, and $13.5 fully guaranteed. You look at the entire contract, and it's pretty good for the Cowboys. I mean, $3.3 million in the first year, $7.4 and $8.6 in the 2 years after that, respectfully. You basically have a 2-year deal on your hands. The third year is, if you want to let him walk, you can. But this is what you were looking at in the market for a safety of his caliber, and the Cowboys obliged and paid him. Now, with that being said, I do think that the Dallas Cowboys really did a good job of bringing back Donovan Wilson. I'm not going to fray from that 110% because he's a guy who was one of those priority free agents where a lot of us were like, do you even put the tag on Donovan Wilson? But I'm glad that they were not going into the situation where they didn't give up and, hey, we saw the market change, but they threw out a contract for him and he accepted it. Because one of the biggest things for me is that with what Dan Quinn's trying to build, Donovan Wilson is a key component of your safety with the physical part of it that he brings to it. Like, when he was in Seattle, that being Dan Quinn, he had Cam Chancellor, for example. Now, I don't think Donovan Wilson's on the same level as a Cam Chancellor, but he's definitely, again, a key component for what you're trying to build on here. Also, the fact that you kept him for what you're trying to do in your secondary and you added, again, a Stephon Gilmore and possibly you'll add a little bit more in the draft, that's really good, okay? And I think that shows that the Cowboys value with what they're trying to do on defense really damn good. So, again, you look at Donovan Wilson's contract, a really good deal for what you would get in a player for his caliber. So, good job on the Cowboys for doing their job and re-signing a guy that maybe you should have signed beforehand. But, again, I'm going to save that towards the very end because I have something to say on that. Finally, let's move over to Leighton Vander Esch's contract. So when Leighton Vander Esch had his contract announced, it was 2 years, $11 million, $5 million guaranteed. When you look at the actual contract, pretty damn good deal for the Cowboys. I mean, the cap hit for him is going to be pretty much the same with that it was. I mean, a 3.1 mil and a 4.75 in the 2 years that he's going to be with the team. I'm not complaining about that. And also, again, kind of, if you want to look at it for what it is, it's basically a 1-year contract with an option year. And so if the Cowboys feel like he isn't worth it following this year, they can just let him go. And this provides the Cowboys with much needed insurance at the linebacker position. I felt like if you let Leighton Vander Esch walk, you would have been screwed at the linebacker spot. You would have had to most likely go out in free agency and add another guy or two and go into the draft and add a guy. And that's kind of where we stand right now. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are bringing back guys that I would wanted them to bring back. I wanted them to try and bring back Donovan Wilson. I wouldn't have complained if they let him walk, but hey, you know what? Cool. Same thing with Leighton Vander Esch, but Leighton Vander Esch, I was a bit more like, okay, you kind of have to because of how your linebacking room's looking. But I really like what the Cowboys have done here. You bring back 2 key free agents, and, for how quick you did it, that's something we're not used to in Cowboy land, okay? Like, I want to make that emphatically clear that with how fast the Cowboys moved, because apparently Leighton Vander Esch was in contact with some other teams, they got this thing done, and they got it for under the market value that he could have gotten. Like, I was thinking Leighton was probably going to be around $7 or $8 million, and the Cowboys really got him in the 5.5 range, if we're being completely honest there. So with all that out of the way, those are the two contracts the Cowboys did, and I'm not including the Stephon Gilmore one. If you really want to know, it's $9 million because the Colts ate $2 million of the big salary he has. But again, the Cowboys did good stuff on day two. I'm not going to lie to you and say that the Dallas Cowboys did not do good things on day two. However, here's the biggest thing I want to get out, because this has been an ongoing conversation throughout day two, is, oh, you need to stop complaining because look at what the Cowboys did. Well, I'm not a fan of being complacent. You re-signing two of your guys when they hit the open market or in the legal tampering period, and then you go trade for a guy such as Stephon Gilmore, is something that other teams try to do. I have been on record saying the Cowboys need to be more proactive with how they handle things. I'm not going to act like these aren't good moves. I'm not that naive, and I'm not going to be that negative to them, like, oh, this is terrible. Because there are some people that think, oh, you got a washed-up corner. No, you didn't. Stephon Gilmore is a starting caliber guy, and you can argue he could be your cornerback one. And also, I'm not asking him to be cornerback one. I'm asking him to be a cornerback two, which, if you're looking at the landscape of how the Cowboys are constructing their secondary, he's an upgrade over what you have at cornerback two. Let's just keep it funky there. You bring back Leighton Vander Esch and you bring back Donovan Wilson. That's great. Now, in my opinion, the Dallas Cowboys, all they have to do in their defense is add some beef into the interior, bring back Jonathan Hankins if possible on a cheap deal, or someone of that caliber, and then you go maybe draft a linebacker and a cornerback, for the future of things, and you roll there. Like, that's how I'm looking at it there. I don't think just because you got, Stephon Gilmore, you don't address cornerback still. I think you can go after a guy, but that's just my opinion. Anybody can disagree with that. And then what this tells me is that the Cowboys, I think, are going to gear their entire draft towards an offensive production of astronomical proportions, of just trying to rebuild this entire offense, or retool it, I guess that's the word to use. Now, we don't know what's going to happen next, and I want to make it clear. The Dallas Cowboys still have work to do. We can be excited over what they did, but still wanting more. That is my entire thought process at this point in time. I'm happy the Cowboys did stuff on day two. I'm not one of those like, oh, they weren't doing anything on day one. I was just worried that they weren't going to do anything. And it seems like that while Jerry and Steven, according to where the yacht was in the Bahamas, whoever was at the Star was cooking. So what I would want everyone to keep in mind is that they have not touched Zeke's contract, and they have not touched Tyron's contract. And they could release some players to open up some cap space. So that is the next big thing we need to keep an eye out on. If the Cowboys are going to look to add another guy onto this team, you could see them touch Zeke's contract and Tyron's contract in terms, because they're working on, lowering the cap hit. I'm going to just say this right now, because this is kind of how I feel with the vibe that's going on in Dallas. And I could be wrong, but I hope I'm not. If the Cowboys open up more cap space, I think they're going to go after a guy at the wide receiver spot. I think you kind of have to at this juncture. And also, I'm talking about like a DeAndre Hopkins or an Odell Beckham Jr. or someone in that mix. If you want to go after McCole Hardman, cool. But you need to add another receiver. Noah Brown is gone. Okay? So with where we stand right now, the Dallas Cowboys need to keep their foot on the gas and not get complacent. That's where I stand there. I understand that people want to be like, oh, Space, you were complaining too much, or, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Listen, if I'm complaining about the Dallas Cowboys not doing their job because they have shown their propensity of not doing their job, I have a right to complain as much as others, can just believe that they're doing a fine job. I'm not here to tell you what you can or can't think. This is just my opinion alone. However, I'll applaud when good decisions are made, and these were good decisions that were made. But you need to add another wide receiver and maybe another linebacker, and then we can, just be calm throughout the entire period of time before the draft. I'm really curious to see what the Dallas Cowboys do, because I'm telling you right now, like, the market is deflated, which I'm glad it is. So if you want to go get DeAndre Hopkins, because people ask me, like, okay, what's the comp for that? You're probably looking at where the Cowboys stand, like a pick 90 or later. Like I'm sorry, but the Cardinals are not going to get a massive, amount of, comp stuff for DeAndre Hopkins. It's not going to happen unless like they're going to take a good chunk of the salary, but I don't think they're going to do that. So let's keep our eyes focused on what the Cowboys might do. If the Cowboys make a trade for DeAndre Hopkins, oh my God, like I think everyone's going to lose their shit, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see how things go. But with that being said, I do hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and hit that notification bell as well. This is Space Cowboy Media signing out. Have a good one.